What if the reason you're not getting better has nothing to do with your diagnosis and everything to do with your environment? We see patients every day who've done everything right, the labs, the medications, the specialists, yet they still feel exhausted, inflamed, anxious, foggy, or just not themselves. Today, we're talking about why we practice functional medicine, how we got here, and why mold related illness has become one of the most important and most overlooked root causes of chronic disease.
Hey there. Welcome to the consult room with Dr. Gabby and Dr. Tami. We are functional medicine providers who specialize in treating people with chronic illness. So this podcast is going to be where we talk about all things patients are experiencing every day, but rarely get real answers for. So if you've ever been told that your labs are normal, but you don't feel normal, you've come to the right place.
Yes.
But before we dive into mold and why it's such a cornerstone issue, we want you to know a little bit about who we are, where we came from, and why this work is so personal to us. So I'm going to start with my delightful co-host, Dr. Gabby.
Hey, so excited that we're starting this. It's awesome. And we can give an intro of where we started pretty much and doing the kind of work that we do, which we know that there's not many people out there that are doing this kind of job. I mean, it's been a journey, which I know that I have shared my struggles and you've shared yours as well. And I would have to say, where did I started? I mean, when it comes with like managing cases related to like mold illness, I would have to say that I would have to go back with when the pandemic started. I had just started working in the current clinic that I am the current owner and medical director. And I started to see these kind of unusual cases, especially some people that were like going to see different specialists and doctors, and they kind of didn't fit the picture of what was going on. So I kind of like, okay, I need to learn about how to better serve these kind of patients. So of course I did learn quite a bit with the doctor that who actually founded this clinic, the Resilient Health, Dr. Hausman Cohen. So she was my mentor and kind of introduced me to this world, especially with the complex cases, because she actually did originally the shoemaker training and the shoemaker protocol, which later on, maybe in one of our episodes, we can talk a little bit about that. And I would have to say that my very first case, which actually, is Christina Bayer. And when
Badass.
Yeah, when I first met her, and and she had actually has spoken about this even with others, and when she's been, in social media, I was like, I just dig more digging. I do have to say the functional medicine piece of me doing part of the certification courses with the functional medicine, doing my training in integrative medicine fellowship, it kind of opened up the doors for me to do kind of like more of that medical detective work. So through that, I was like doing more pretty much being just a good historian and getting all the facts. And she has seen other functional doctors locally, and she was, managing gut microbiome issues, and there was presence of yeast, but not getting into making that long, that story longer. But I actually was reviewing kind of like her case and reviewing everything that they've done. And I was like, I wonder if there's something related to the environment. And because we were in the height of the pandemic, people were working from home. So they were like, okay, she started like, yes, things like, my headaches, anxiety, things like that got triggered when she started to work from home. And fast forward, when we did further testing, she was probably my very first patient of doing the mycotoxin testing. And then when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I guess my intuition was right. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with this right now? So I'm like, okay, I really need to learn this. And that's when I decided to join the Dr. Neil Nathan and Jill Krista mentorship. And that's when I kind of like took a deeper dive. And then I started doing further training and research. And that actually kind of brought me into having even seen more mole patients, more cases related to mole illness, and I'm able to help these cases and these patients. So that's pretty much like my very first contact with somebody with mold issues. And then, of course, you kind of like, I'm wondering if, you start thinking back of other patients that you've seen or people that were having persistent, like, issues related to, you know, medical mystery that you can put your finger in and onto. And I was like, I'm wondering if these patients were actually dealing with environmental problems. So that's actually where I pretty much started my journey. And it's been like nonstop, as you know, since then.
So literally, let me back up because I have some questions I know answers to, but our viewers might not. Dr. Gabby is being very like underplaying how incredible she is. The person she's referring to is like the badass in the mold attorney world, and Dr. Gabby probably contributed to her going down that rabbit hole when she found out that mold was causing herself and her family to be very ill. So when she talks about Dr. Bayer, one of the reasons Dr. Gabby and I know each other is because we both work with her law firm to help people get well that have been exposed to mold. So
Right.
most of the people in the mold community will know because her law firm, Just Well Law, is the #1 mold litigious in the country. And part of her mission is to educate other attorneys so that no matter where you are, Dr. Gabby happens to be in Austin with them. But no matter where you are in the country, you can find an attorney that if things have been done wrong to you, if you bought a house that was built inappropriately, if you moved into a rental that was done inappropriately, if they knew that they were doing harm, Christina or another attorney that's been trained by her, helped by her, is probably going to be the one that's going to help you get the answers and get the settlement that you need. So Dr. Gabby has been instrumental in her journey, which is incredible. So before that, Dr. Gabby, were you primary care and you just kind of
It was pretty much primary care. I've been practicing here in Austin since 2015. I had moved from Louisiana with my family, but it was purely primary care. I've been pretty much in practicing full-on medicine 15 plus years. And it wasn't more until at the start of the pandemic all the way until now that I've been much more focusing on these particular cases. And I feel like it's a pretty much like a passion for me in the sense of because I've been also in those shoes, dealing with also mole related illness. My situation didn't happen until fast forward, like more towards like 2 or 3 years back when I started with my own health challenges. But that really opened my eyes in helping these kind of patients that are struggling and people that were like, nonstop going to doctors, ERs, being dismissed, that it's pretty much all in their head. And I've been in those shoes as well, and I don't like it either. So I kind of like see the same, I kind of put myself in the shoes of the patient, but I've always had like this ever since I became a doctor. Well, I guess that's why I wanted to become a doctor was to do you know, play medical detective, like actually investigate further, trying to get them feeling better. That's why I never kind of wanted to stick with like one specialty. And I just decided to stay more in the primary care. And once, knowing to have the opportunity about doing integrative medicine, I was like, wow, I can actually practice this way. And I even loved it more. And I know you probably have felt and have the same views. Like to me, this is better medicine when you're actually able to hear the patient's story and sit with them in a compassionate way and just spend the time just listening, which in the primary care, when I was working with corporate healthcare, it was like 15-minute visit, in and out, in and out. And it wasn't a way of living. I was like, this is it. This is what I signed up for. So that what kind of drove me into like more of this down this path, which of course landed me further into doing working with patients related with the medical mysteries, such as like mold illness.
Do you think you manifested your own mold journey?
That's a good question. I've never been asked that. Perhaps.
I wonder that. That's why I was asking. Dr. Gabby has a backstory, and we'll get into it in our further down when we talk about mold. But Dr. Gabby, upon her journey to Austin, much like Christina, did have exposure to mold. And we're hoping it's a thing of her past, but we're not 100% sure.
Right, right. And I mean, it can be, I often kind of wonder if I didn't do this kind of job, would I be able to find it? Kind of end with like so many other patients, such as like with a long list of medications, or being sort of like, oh, you may have an autoimmune condition, but we'll monitor and see how it goes. So not getting any answers. I don't know. And now I know more, of course, and I'm able to, go through look into different therapies, right? Which is quite somewhat what we offer to our patients. And I know that you offer those kind of treatments, more alternative treatments is what we call it, to help these kind of patients that they're dealing with. So that's pretty much like how I started. And the very first small patient that I dealt with was, of course, Christina Bayer. And
That's badass.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't know that.
Serendipitous, but
yeah,
it kind of happened. And obviously it's been, I've had a lot of growth, but I know that I've been able to actually help patients dealing with this. I don't know about, I know part of your story, but I know that our listeners our viewers might be actually interested in knowing what actually got you into doing these kind of cases, difficult cases as well.
right. Yeah, I always laugh because I used to say that when I was in primary care, which I spent the first, 7 years of practice doing, family practice, wound care, hyperbarics, which I still do hyperbarics. But I used to look at my schedule, and if I saw somebody with like chronic pain or any of the things that I exhibit, like chronic fatigue, or I'd like do my little like sigh and be like, oh, and now I look at my schedule, and if there's somebody on there that isn't a medically complex mystery diagnosis, I'm like, oh, okay, an anti-aging patient. So it's switched. It used to be, right, that like one or two would be, and now it's everybody is a medical mystery. So, but I love it because like Dr. Gabby said, part of this that's so cool is we get to really get people answers and get them better. Even though it's more complex, it's definitely Dr. House medicine, where you have to get dirty and get deep. I started my journey because my mom, when I was in residency, my last year of residency, we found that she had breast cancer and she had a bilateral mastectomy, and she didn't want to lose her ability to wear low-cut dresses because it's so funny because my mom is totally a tomboy and like a little spectrum-y, but she was like, absolutely not. Like, I have pretty evening gowns and I want to have cleavage. And I was like, okay, we all have our thing, right?
Yeah.
So she got expanders and then she had implants. And obviously, if I knew then what I know now, I would have been like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Please don't put anything fake in my mother.
Yeah.
But we didn't know. So she ended up having, I think it was a total of 17 surgeries. Her body rejected the expanders, rejected the implants, rejected everything. In fact, the most harrowing was we were literally we were in the middle of the ocean, and her right breast grew to be about 8 size larger than it was post-surgery. And it was bright red. It was hard. I was in the middle of the ocean, and all I had was, and you can ask my husband, I never travel without 37 antibiotics, an antiviral, an antiparasitic,
You
right?
have
So
your
I'm
medicine cabinet with you.
literally,
No way.
literally. The only thing I didn't have was IVs because I didn't do it back then, right? So I'm giving her every antibiotic, every trick in my handbook, and I cannot get that redness to go down. And she's starting to get fevers. Obviously, I know that the cruise ship doctor is going to have no idea how to treat, So she ended up having to fly home from Reykjavik, Iceland, our next port, after driving stick, like with up against that breast that was horribly inflamed.
Oh my God.
She had surgery the next morning. Her plastic surgeon was a great friend of mine, so had already known from my post, like, hey, can you take care of her? Came in, no infection. Knowing now what I know, it was, autoimmune. Her body was trying to kick that implant out. Took it out, cleaned it out, put in a new implant, and we kept going down that road. So her body finally accepted the implants. But then when she transitioned from brand name Arimidex to generic Arimidex, she started falling. Like all of a sudden, her joints would get weak. She'd fall. She'd been on brand name Arimidex for like 3.5 years when her insurance said, hey, we're not going to pay for this anymore. So out of nowhere, we started sending her to all of the specialists, and she was diagnosed with lupus first, then rheumatoid, and then she was told she had hyperlipidemia, which she'd never had before surgery. And as Dr. Gabby and I know, cholesterol is an acute phase reactant. So when your body's in a state of peril, it's going to pop our cholesterol. Because what do we do to rebuild membranes? We use cholesterol for that.
Right,
so, but her doctor didn't tell her that, right? And root cause medicine was not something I understood then. I was just like, I kept saying, why? My mom runs 5Ks. Like she's never been on a medicine before. Why does she have all these weird things? And nobody could give me an answer, right? So I first started in acupuncture because she had chronic pain with everything that was going on. And acupuncture would do okay with her for a while. She could maintain. I'd give her a treatment. She'd be pain-free for a few days. I'd go back to Wisconsin, go back to clinic, whatever. I'd get a call. Hey, pain's back. So when acupuncture stopped being the answer, one of my friends from acupuncture school called me and was like, hey, I'm going to a functional medicine conference in Arizona. I know it's, February. It's dreary and yucky and cold in Wisconsin. Do you want to come with me? So I will forever
yes.
thank her. Yeah, I was like, yeah. What this weekend? Yeah, let me book that flight, right? I know Dr. Gabby would say the same thing. So I jumped on a plane. I'd never heard of functional medicine before. I went to my first conference and I knew that, like Dr. Gabby said, that's what I'd been looking for because I went to school because I wanted to be a healer. I wanted to help people. I wanted to figure out what was going on and fix them. That was the thing. And then when you get out and you're actually in medicine, like she said, it's a time clock. I'm seeing every patient 8 to 12 minutes. You get them out the door, you get the labs ordered, and then you're on to the next. It's crazy.
I mean, that's pretty much Fox medicine. I mean, it's not a way of actually, helping these, especially somebody with such complexity like your mom, because definitely that the implant is the trigger, right? But then I bet with the doctors that she's seen, they probably thought, oh, maybe genetic and cholesterol and diet and let's put you on a statin, but they don't actually go deeper or even like, okay, this is kind of odd. Why this is happening to this woman? So I kind of like can relate with your story because my mom went through something similar.
Really?
She actually also had bilateral mastectomy. She ended up needing in like my mom compared to me, maybe it's like, I'm originally from Dominican Republic. So, sometimes we Latino community or Dominican, we like to be like all like glam up. And my mom was always a type. I kid you not, even when she was going in for even like surgery and coming out when she had she had the mastectomy and everything. She was like coming out anesthesia and she was like, please fix my hair and put some makeup. And I'm like, Mom, no one is coming to see you. You've just got out of surgery. And she's like, no, we have to look good. And I grew up with this woman being like that, but I'm definitely not like her that much. Maybe I grabbed something from her. I kid you not, she was like that. And of course I could understand that was like taking part of her womanhood, and she wanted to feel still like a woman, and with, I guess, you know having, I don't want to say vain, but it's beyond that. It's just kind of like part of your identity and somebody like herself, right? So unfortunately, the implants didn't do great for her, and she did also got diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. She actually had diagnosis for Sjogren's, and now having lupus as well. So I almost wonder if her decline in her health after that has somewhat to do with the implants. I know that there can be other factors, like if you have the predisposition, like what a lot of times I talk with my patients. If you have certain genetics and then your environment is not great, some of those genes, especially when we can talk about this in a future episode, of course, right, with like methylation issue or detox issue, that can actually cause for you to even react to certain things that are related in your environment. It could be, something like an implant. It could be what we're noticing with other environmental toxins, people that get exposed to pesticides, the heavy metals, mold, even chronic infections, which we also deal with that in our day-to-day life when we're seeing some of these complicated cases. So I completely can relate to that. And I hope your mom journey with you learning and going into full-on functional medicine and practicing what you do, you pretty much have helped her and tackle many of her layers, right, of what she's been dealing with all these years. I'm hoping your mom is doing okay with it.
Wish she was a better patient. She was definitely a great first patient, because most of my paid patients are much better behaved than my mom ever was.
Maybe you need to charge your mom.
Yeah, probably. It probably has something to do with that. Yeah. But as soon as I went to that first functional medicine meeting, I was like, this is what we should be doing on every patient. Like, this
Right.
is a no-brainer, right? So I came back and I was 100% into it. I was like, I brought it. I was a regional medical director of my very large multi-specialty hospital at that point. So not only was I doing primary care and wound care and all that fun stuff, I was working urgent care because I was in charge of urgent care. I was, in charge of a bunch of clinics. So I came back and I was super excited. I was going to share this with the world. I was like, come on, let's do this. And needless to say, they were less than excited, right? They were kind of like, because functional medicine, as much as it is root cause and it makes a difference in the person's life, it doesn't give good money, right? It doesn't feed into all the specialties that make bank.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the insurance, right? The insurance world, which is, I did find it difficult when I was doing my own training in functional medicine fellowship to kind of incorporate it in my current job back then. They even kind of like entertained the idea, but the reality is it was all based on the quantity, not quality of care. So they still want it. I'm like, how am I going to be able to do more of the functional integrative with, you know, seeing 20 plus patients in a day? I mean, it's not realistic. These people need a lot of work. You need to spend some time with them. I mean, of course, when I was in corporate, same as yourself, I was medical director for the primary care division with Baylor Scott and White, which I gained a lot of experience, and it was pretty eye-opening. But it was, I wouldn't be able to practice the way that I practice now by obviously staying in that. Like, a lot of things would need to change. And maybe nowadays, because there has been more buzz, especially around in you know, even from what we've seen on social media and the news, et cetera, about functional medicine, there's definitely more people looking for this kind of healthcare just because we're able to help them, not dismissing that things like, what people go into the ER or, urgent care, et cetera. I mean, all that is important. We need that, of course. But when it comes to people struggling with more than like 2 or 3 health conditions or something that is considered chronic, such as like, people like your mom, people even that I've dealt with like chronic pain issue or autoimmune condition, the reality is that like the current healthcare system offers them so little. So I think with the functional medicine, because we take such a broader approach and we take exactly the whole person when it comes to like, okay, their nutrition, lifestyle, like all that is important. And we try to address it with our patients, right? But we also look into the environment. Okay,
Huge.
where do you live? What has been around you? What do you work on? What kind of exposure you had? What happened when you were a kid? Because we've seen some, and you probably seen this, that we've seen some people that they had stuff that they were struggling or may have started when they were a kid. And now as an adult, they're like, I need to actually take care of this because this is just getting worse and worse. Or they might say certain stories like, oh, yeah, I remember going to so many doctors, but they could never figure out what was going on. And then until they find somebody with the broader knowledge, especially with the training that functional medicine has helped us in figuring out these cases. So I think that is I think that is much needed. I would have to say that yes, if I am literally having a heart attack, I will go to the hospital ASAP. I will be seeing a cardiologist. This is not that I'm going to, throw a prayer and hope that it passes by. No, this is not what we do. We actually do the research. We actually look into the data. I actually have recommended patients like, listen, your levels and your tests, it is not going to get fixed by just let's say a particular supplement. We need to give you medication. You need prescription. Like, this is what I love about what we do, because we take what our knowledge base was, right, when we were practicing and what we learned in the primary care world, and then we combine it with the functional medicine and other like modalities that is out there to help our patients. But we always look at the data, and I make a decision with the patients like, hey, this might not be considered FDA standard or FDA approved, but let's review the research. And actually, this actually makes sense. It's more like a partnership that we're creating with the patient, just in order to help them. They're seeing response, and they're actually noticing like, I think this is for me. I think this is like, I need to continue on with this journey. Because it's not easy. As you know, managing people that have been dealing with things for so many years, you treat things in layers and it takes time. And no, what I tell a lot of my patients, like, if you've been suffering with this for 10 years, do not expect that I can solve it in less than a month. There's not box medicine. And this is something that it takes some time also to manage. But we will figure this out and help you, because this is what I think that might be going on. And then obviously we use tests that kind of help us to strengthen our diagnosis.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's one of the things I love about Dr. Gabby. She's like I am. If she doesn't know the answer, she's going to do a deep dive. She's going to take a course. She's going to spend the weekend looking into it. She's going to go on PubMed. She's going to reach out to Dr. Horowitz, Dr. Nathan, Dr. Krista, Dr. whoever has the answer, Dr. Voodoo, if it comes to that and it's research based.
Yeah.
She's going to do it, And that's the thing. A lot of times, we get a lot of people that are very desperate, just like it was, or Gabby is, or, my mom was. Speaking of, did your mom ever, because now she's in the Dominican, so is
Yeah.
functional medicine a thing in the Dominican?
It's not. I feel
Okay.
so sad about that. I mean, maybe we can do something about it.
We have that on our
Something
to-do list.
something to do.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like we can afford
Like
to add more stuff to our list.
correct. In that extra time that we have. We're like, yeah,
Always
let's open a clinic.
right.
Right on.
So unfortunately over there, the system does work more with like specialists. Like a lot of people, like even with things like, oh, I have pneumonia, I need to see a lung specialist. Or I'm having high blood pressure, I need to see a lung specialist. And oftentimes when I was, hearing those kind of things, I was wondering like, why? I mean, this is something that a primary care doctor would particularly do. But I think the difference in my country, even though things are much more kind of westernized these days, I did grow up on a time, especially with my grandparents, abueli, of like, okay, your stomach is not settled. Let's go ahead and make a little ginger tea. So I kind of grew up with some influence of things that are much more like holistic or natural. So a lot of people don't just jump into going to a doctor right away. Now, this time might be a little bit more like that, but compared to when I grew up, people were not just jumping into seeing a doctor. You were trying to do what, like folk remedy, remedios caseros, like kind of like do it yourself at home so you would feel better, or even some herbs, a lot of vapor rub, Vicks for everything. The diet, changes in the diet, a lot of things approach with diet, which I do feel like at times that is kind of missed nowadays in this society. But also, I would have to say that people would see like curandero. Now you don't hear or see much of that. So curandero is kind of like, I don't want to call it like a witch doctor, but that has some kind of like a herbalist that has that experience and kind of like managing ailments. And they would like recommend you, okay, you can take a tea of this or rub this herb to your forehead for headaches, those kind of things. So I did have some exposure on that. And I've kind of also, when I started doing integrative medicine, I started even helping some of my patients on that. Like I remember when just before I dive into doing integrative medicine, like doing the actual fellowship, I remember seeing a patient that, which that kind of triggered me about learning a little bit more with like in this type of medicine, that they were actually getting their blood sugar under control. And it was actually looking with better numbers. And I'm like, what happened here? Or like, and that spiked my interest because I started asking the questions, you know, nowadays, and this is what happens with some of our colleagues, perhaps that are, just doing conventional, well, let's call it like a more allopathic medicine or mainstream medicine, what we're seeing now, right? Sometimes I don't have the time to even like ask. So I was just asking like, how did this happen? And even if they told me like, oh yeah, I started taking this herb, and I was like, I wasn't dismissed. Like, that's like, what are you talking about? I was like, let me look into it. And they were taking berberine. That was the first time I heard about berberine. And I was like, berberine, what is this? So that's when I kind of like, huh, there is something to this. I mean, I'm not saying that we're going to substitute scripts for supplements, but obviously this person was already doing the diet and they were doing fine. And then that was just giving them the extra push that they needed or to strengthening their protocol, meaning of getting their blood sugar in better shape. So, I mean, why not? And of course, I wanted to like learn more in terms of like what it is, potential side effects. Can I learn this? And that's when through a conference, which is done once a year, it's usually in San Diego by the IHM, which is where I train, which is the Academy of Integrative Health Medicine. I was blown away. and even like regulating your nervous system by doing meditation or forest bathing. And I'm like, oh gosh, if I can actually convince a patient to even do this, they don't have to depend so much on taking Xanax all the time, or they're like in this fight or flight response and not doing any kind of work to get to regulate their nervous system. So I really appreciate to have had that opportunity because it really opened the floodgates for me on that. And then just wanting to learn more. And then, of course, now it's more with the functional medicine, you're kind of like learning more of how the system actually kind of work at the cell level. And I was kind of like, when I started doing the certification with the functional medicine, there's a lot of stuff that I used to see in medical school. Like, I kid you not, when I did Krebs cycle in medical school, I'm like, I'm not going to use this. Why am I going to use this again? Like, what is the purpose of this? I'm going to see sick people and I'm going to have to just fix them going in and out. But that has helped me understand why we give certain kind of treatments when we're handling or helping people dealing with like mitochondria issues or environmental toxins, such as like mold. It falls into place. But I understand that because some people don't know or you're not even taught these kind of things, which I bet you went through the same thing with your training. Like, these things are not approached or not, let's say not showing the significance or teaching the importance of knowing these kind of issues, such as like, chronic infections, heavy metal, uh, toxins. I guess I got a little bit of some heavy metal issue when you were, acutely, and you learn those kind of things even when you're in medical school or like in residency. Like, if you had somebody that may come with poisoning and you kind of have to try to treat it in the hospital level, which is great, but I never knew on terms of like chronicity. When somebody's been having that for so long, how can actually affect their health and even triggering further down the line autoimmune diseases, as we see with many of our cases. And, people that struggle with that, such as your mom and my mom too.
Have you ever thought of trying to, I know you go home because both your parents are still in the DR. Have you
Yeah.
ever thought of working with a medicine man to get like their, cool recipes? Because then you could like you said, we would always go to the ER for a heart attack. I'd always go to an orthopedic surgeon if I broke my arm,
Exactly.
So would you ever do that so you could bring that to your practice here just to offer like another layer? Because I would love to do that. I think that's super
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, I would. It didn't actually occur to me just by, until now, just talking about it with you. It is one of those practices that has actually got a bit kind of lost with the years, again, because the society has been much more westernized. So that used to be a practice pretty much, I would say, all the way like over 20 years back, kind of like looking back. But now people want the ill, like a pill for the illness.
do.
So if somebody I know in the DR, for example, if somebody would start catching a cold, they want to right away get on antibiotics. I mean, no, there are other ways of how we can potentially manage this with supportive care and helping your immune system. I think the big thing for us that what we do with the kind of work that we do is this has definitely has helped me for sure. I'm pretty sure for you too. And doing more preventive medicine of like, okay, you're catching so many infections in a year. Like, I had a case yesterday, like, I'm always sick. I don't know what's going on. So like always catching like upper respiratory. I'm like, so has anyone tested your immune system? What's going on with that? So I feel like I definitely loved and enjoy my years practicing in the primary care world and, doing the full thing about going to hospitals, nursing homes, etc., because I gain experience, especially to treat things acutely. But when it comes to things that are considered chronic, which is what I enjoy and I do the most, this is why I find it so valuable in doing functional medicine. And I know it has
What
had
it,
a bad reputation, but you've probably seen it, about like some even our own colleagues dismissing functional medicine, but it's because there has been a lot of like other people that, let's say they do a course or they created this course, and everyone that does it, they call themselves that they're functionally trained. But I think with us it's pretty different because we've done the primary care, we did medical school, we are medical doctors, but training under functional medicine, especially even doing like reputable places, of course, that has added value for us and for what we do in our day-to-day life, in our practice.
So cool. Yeah, I would love that. I think on one of our trips to DR when we're planning our healing center,
Yeah.
we should talk to a medicine man because I love that. I love the bringing, like you said, if they've gone into homes for thousands of years and been able to help, and they do root cause medicine.
Exactly. And
Super
they go
cool.
back to the basics, right? It's just the basic. It's not, you know, it's not like, oh, you're having a headache. Yeah, let's give you ibuprofen, which, by the way, I remember having a case in the primary care when I was practicing primary care that they were prescribed like just ibuprofen, which people think that is so, you know, not a big deal. But this person was taking it for like weeks and weeks. And they actually came to me because they actually were having blood, like throwing up some blood. That happened when I was like working in the hospital. I was actually a resident back then. And when I look back into the history, this person was like, okay, how many ibuprofen? Like eight pills a day for how long? Like 8 weeks now. And I was like,
Boy.
wait, hold on. Has anyone asked you why you're having the headache? Or like why is happening? Or why you have the headaches the first place? And they're like, well, I mean, I went to the doctor, they gave me just, this is for pain, and I just thought that it was okay because it was over the counter, so I just kept taking it.
Boy.
So by practicing what we do, we can actually even avoid people even from the health insurance perspective of then spending thousands of dollars by paying the hospital for hospitalizing somebody that is having an ulcer. So
That's incredible.
yeah, I know you have had probably similar experience working in this, and then obviously, full on with what you do in practicing more with functional medicine, which
Yeah.
I think that I wish, the current healthcare system acknowledged and would actually value the functional medicine and it's better quality. It's a much better quality care.
It's so exciting. It's so exciting because I always say you have a really cool practice, where you do some primary care. I always say more as a cover your ass sort of thing that I'm not a primary. But for a lot of my patients, I do act as primary because number one, the last thing they want to do is do all this work, get on this path of healing, and then go to our allopathic, you know, coworkers and be dismissed, right? Because they found something that works. They love it, but then they have to explain it to, their OB or their primary. So as much as I say I don't function as a primary, because if you're having sore throat now, right, while Dr. Gabby and I are talking, I can't send in orders. I don't have anyone on call. I make the joke that there's no emergencies in functional medicine because we do supplements, but that's sort of a joke because I feel like we work with the sickest patients, but
I know,
I'm also
and I've had some patients that have called me, with some struggles, or let's say like, oh, I went to visit my mom, and unfortunately, all my symptoms came back, or I started to kind of having worsening symptoms because they probably were dealing with water damage building, right? Like potential mold there. So yeah, I mean, I guess that would be kind of considered a urgent call that I may have had like on a weekend. But I don't know how it's been like from where you are currently at and practicing. How have they welcomed your craft, like your practice, in terms of how you are handling and delivering, pretty much practicing functional medicine? within your community? Like, are they actually very like receptive, or let's say the curious? Over here is a bit very, Austin has always been very wanting to get into the forefront when it comes with functional medicine. So we do have several practices here that are mostly just doing functional medicine. So it's pretty well received within the community. I'm not sure with where you're practicing, how are things with the functional medicine?
So it's very interesting because being a small town, I'm from Chicago, but obviously I'm practicing in a much smaller Green Bay. But strangely enough, there's another functional provider here and another integrative doctor as well. And I'm both. I'm functional and integratively trained. And I came from allopathic medicine. Like I said, I was a regional medical director here. So if my patients didn't know, of me, most of the doctors do know. And I would say it's probably 20-80 in terms of 20% are interested, want to know more, see that, I've changed lives and things have gone away. Like the ulcerative colitis patient never came back because we healed it. The Crohn's patient healed, never came back. The rheumatoid or undifferentiated connective tissue healed and never came back. So I think there's a little bit of interest, maybe 20%, and the other 80% is very disparaging.
Yeah, that's kind of disappointing when they're, well, maybe with time they always would be much more open, but I was kind of wondering, I mean, those cases that you actually kind of they have their autoimmune condition resolved, such as, with inflammatory bowel disease, if ever gastro reach out like, hey, what exactly do you do? Like, can you discuss it with me? Can I learn? Like, I don't feel like there is. I feel like with our community and what I've seen, I mean, you can always chime in on that, but I feel like when they don't know something or they didn't train, the majority of times I notice that they can be much more dismissive because there's not a data on that, or that's not on the textbook, or that's not on the medical books. Like, you are just making things up, or you try something and maybe that was just luck and that's why the patient got better. So I feel like the doctor should always, like, no matter what kind of training you did, functional, integrative, or just, straight up allopathic medicine, primary care, I feel like the doctor always has to have a sense of curiosity. Why? You know, why this is happening? Or can we do a little deeper? And I've met here in Austin some docs that they're curious and they are interested in the kind of work that we do because they have seen some improvement, even if we like share some mutual patients. But I've seen others that unfortunately they are like not wanting to refer because they think that, oh, they might be a little bit too woo-woo. So I've heard that, and I'm like, well, I'm still a doctor, trained as a medical doctor, and became board certified. But I remember one of my patients before I dive into working in where I'm currently now in Resilient Health, which is my practice. I had a patient that was I was following up, a veteran. Was discharged. And I kid you not, on the discharge summary, they put in, patient had actually discontinued their diabetic medication because they were seeing their naturopathic doctor that corrected their blood sugar with dietary changes and even supplements. And I'm like, well, first off, I'm their primary care doctor because back then I was still working for corporate healthcare, and I'm like, I'm not a naturopath, not dismissing anyone that's naturopath. I have utterly respect for them, and they're excellent. But I was like, I'm still considered medical doctor because I recommended and made changes on a patient's lifestyle. That's why I'm naturopath. Like, there's again, it's just the way that unfortunately the society is now. I was kind of practicing in a smaller town, So I know that they might be a little bit more strict in their way of thinking and kind of like what you may have experienced. Like they're not that open to welcoming these newer ideas or what's been the latest in the research, because I know you stay on top of the latest and always, as well as with me, because that's how we that's actually how we met through like a conference. And also
That's right.
you're in the same training and the same mentorship with the Dr. Neil Nathan one. So was that the first time that we met? Was it at a conference? Yeah.
Yeah, it was TFIM because we had seen each
Yeah.
other like communicating, and I loved you like immediately because you like came up to me and gave me a hug, and you were like, Tammy, and it was like we were long lost sisters. I loved it. I told Gio about it. I was like, oh my gosh, I love her so much. She has such good energy.
Yeah, I actually, I think I'm good at reading, not 100%, but I think I'm good at reading people's energies. So I was like, Tammy, I feel like I just thought like there's so much more depth into her. Like I really need to like meet her. And, and that's obviously we became friends, and now we're doing this.
So amazing.
Our first episode.
Exactly. So obviously, we don't want to give too much away to our delightful audience. And we want to keep you guys coming back for more, but we wanted to introduce ourselves, kind of say why we got into this space, why we're interested, and why we're excited about bringing different people together so we can talk about this. We know that this journey is expensive. We know that not everybody can afford a consult with Dr. Gabby or myself. So we feel like this is a great place where we're going to come together every other week and we're going to talk about cases, our story. We're going to talk about cool stuff we've seen. We'll do some brainstorming so we can tell you ahead of time what's going to be on there, but we can't guarantee we'll go by it. She's Dominican and I'm blonde. We might be all over the place.
That's a mix.
Who knows?
We got
But we're still super smart, so it's all good.
Yeah, it's all good. And of course, if anyone we welcome suggestions and even topics from our audience, what they might want to hear, or, what we may want to talk about more. And I think there are a lot of good topics out there, and especially with people that are dealing with these complex issues. And a lot of them, they sometimes feel like so alone, or they feel like, so I think I definitely want to be able to help those kind of patients, because we've lived it, you and me, but also we've seen it either with our loved ones, ourselves, and even with our own patients that we see in our day-to-day in the clinic.
Yeah. And so like Dr. Gabby said, we want you to send in ideas, questions, things for us to focus on. Obviously, like I said, we will have as many cool people and, stuff to share with you as we can make happen. But really the coolness is in the story. It's in you guys. It's in watching the healing unfold. It's incredible.
Yeah, awesome.
So thanks, everybody, and we look forward to having very cool conversations. Dr. Gabby is probably one of the coolest people I know, so who knows? Who knows where this will go?
We'll see where we go.
That's right. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we will look forward to seeing you guys back in a couple weeks.
Take care, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
If this conversation resonated with you, please remember to like, follow, and share this episode with someone you care about. These conversations are meant to be shared. Thank you for being here, for listening, for engaging, and for doing the work to understand your health more deeply. As always, we're sending you love and light.